Hello, the IMF is launching a new report, the Western Balkans, 15 Years of Economic Transition, in which it analyzes how countries in this region have managed their transformation into open market economies. To talk about this new report, here's Poul Thomsen, Director of the IMF's European Department. Hello, Poul.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
In 2014, the IMF looked at transition process in Central and Eastern Europe. Now you're turning into the Balkans. What can we learn looking at the two processes together?
The starting position is, of course, that the Western Balkan countries have come a long way since the conflict. No doubt about that. Anybody who lives there can see that. But it's also clear that the Western Balkan countries have not done so well as the countries in Central and Eastern Europe that are now members of the European Union, like Poland, like the Baltic states, like the Czech Republic. These other countries have done much better in catching up with standards of living in advanced Europe, and as a result, the country in Western Balkan have been left with chronic high unemployment.
And why is that?
It's about reforms. Because of the conflict, the countries in Western Balkan did not embark on reforms the same way that the other countries in Central and Eastern Europe did. After the conflict was over, we saw a boost in reforms, and that was good. But then after the global financial crisis, we again had reforms coming to sort of slow down to a bit of a standstill. In the beginning, one didn't really see it because credit was ample at that time. There was a lot of liquidity in the international system, and these economies could continue to grow for a while. But the underlying reforms were not there. So when the crisis hit in 2008, it unmasked these problems coming from the lack of reforms.
And what does the IMF recommend these countries do now?
Well, they need to preserve the good things, like low inflation. They need to continue to work on getting control of fiscal deficits, bringing down fiscal deficits, reduce fiscal debt, and then above all, they need to reform. They need to continue the reforms, privatize, liberalize the economies, reform the public bureaucracies, all the reforms that we have seen other transition economies tackle.
So it seems like they have a lot of work to do ahead of them. In terms of growth, what is the IMF forecasting for the Western Balkans?
Well, we forecast for 2015 growth just below 1%. Then we expect it to double to about 2% in 2016 and to further increase to about 2.5% in 2017, to a large extent because we expect a gradual improvement in the external environment.
You mentioned the financial crisis as an important event in this country's recent economic history. How are the banks in the West Balkans doing?
Banking is an area where the Western Balkan countries in some ways have done better than countries in other transition economies, because their expansion of credit was to a large extent based on their ability to raise funding domestically to attract deposits. Whereas in these other countries there was a booming credit, expansion of credit that to a large extent was funded by foreign borrowing. And therefore, during the financial crisis, when this borrowing dried up, these other countries had to contract credit. That being said, the banks in the Western Balkans are burdened by high non-performing loans. High non-performing loans is a problem because it sort of encourages banks to channel available credit not to the new dynamic enterprises, but to old struggling enterprises. So one needs to deal with these non-performing loans.
Thank you for being here with us today, Poul.
You're very welcome.